right, good morning everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Matt Shoemaker and this is Tech Forum. If you're new to the channel, welcome. In this channel, I basically talk your ear off and share my thoughts and my ownership experience of my Tesla Model 3, as well as I do some interesting projects in my workshop, primarily lightweight electric propulsion projects, electric bicycles, small electric go-karts, that kind of thing. So today's video is sort of along those lines. Got up this morning at 5:30 and by 6 a.m. I realized that it's probably going to be another hot day, and I wanted to take advantage of the cool morning air. It really wasn't all that humid, and so I decided to break out the electric bike. And this is an electric bike that I built a few years back, and you guys can take a look at that bike here. So this is my electric bike. I built this bike from scratch, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe, and I've got a full build video on my other channel, and I'll post a link to that in the description below. So I don't want to get too technical about this bike. This is primarily about efficiency, but to give you an idea, it is belt drive from the motor to a jack shaft. You can see there's the pedal chain, and over on the other side here, it comes through to that's a clicking freewheel, so that as the bike coasts, that sprocket is fixed and it moves with the wheel at all times. It does not freewheel, so as the bike coasts, the chain goes around through the idler assemblies, and the motor is allowed to freewheel by way of that clicking freewheel. So when I let off the throttle, the motor can sit still and the chain can move live without generating too much drag. All of these idlers here are present for the sole purpose of keeping tension on the chain when the suspension moves up and down. But that's basically it. This is a permanent magnet brushless DC motor. It's 94% efficient in its peak operating, normal operating range, peak efficiency. This is a motor controller designed for the radio control industry, made by Castle Creations for large scale RC airplanes. And this is a pulse width modulation converter box that I built to take the resistive signal from the throttle, convert it to a pulsed signal that the receiver can recognize, or that the motor controller can recognize. It replicates the signal that an RC receiver would give, so that the controller, electronic speed controller in RC lingo, so that can control the motor at the bottom. The batteries, these are lithium polymer batteries. The battery pack nominal voltage is 44 volts. It's 50 volts hot off the charger, and the low voltage cutoff I have set at 40 volts. So it averages more like 45 volts through use, through each charge. This is, again, roughly say 45 volts and 24 amp hours. The bike itself weighs, I believe it's 53 pounds as it sits. The weight keeps varying as I change components, but this bike is, I average, about 25 watt hours per mile as I ride it. And it is, for an electric bicycle, it is quite efficient. I weigh, fully clothed, right about 180. So we're looking at, say, 230 pounds, give or take, and averaging, again, about 25 watt hours per mile. So as you can see, that's a bike that I built mostly from scratch. It was, I'd say half of it was existing frame, and the other half I TIG welded together and made my own drive system and that. Anyway, don't want to get too technical into the bicycle, but on my bike ride this morning, I began to think about weight and I don't know, vehicle substance, if I can term it that way, and efficiency. Now, that electric bicycle it weighs 50 to 55 pounds. It depends on the equipment, the components that I currently have on the bike. I think it's 54 pounds right now, if I remember correctly. And then I weigh roughly 180 pounds fully clothed, so that is, yeah, 230 pounds, 235 pounds, something like that with me on the bike. And it is right around 25 watt hours per mile. And I can get a little bit better than that if I'm careful. I can get worse than that if I just, beat on the thing. But, oh, and that watt hours per mile, that's not pedaling. That's just the electric system only. When I pedal along with it, I see better efficiency than that. And that bike, as a sidebar, I use that sort of as an interesting exercise machine. What I mean by that is if I want to just go for a bicycle ride and look at the birds and enjoy the scenery or whatever, I'll take my normal pedal bike. If I actually want to get some distance out of my ride, I'll take the electric bike. I almost never ride it without pedaling though. Basically, I pedal my brains out on that thing, and there's a standard ride that I do that's about 30 minutes long, and I pedal pretty much as hard as I feel that I can handle based on how rested up I am and how my legs feel from previous days riding. But what I like about that is I can adjust how much exercise I want to, how much effort I want to put in, therefore how much exercise I get and how good my efficiency is. And I can just use the motor to make up the difference. If it's really hot out, I can do some modest pedaling. If I feel real strong and it's not too hot and humid out, I can pedal harder. I love that thing. And I ride that bike as often as is humanly possible. So there are times I take it out 2 or 3 times a day for a half hour, 45 minutes each. There's times, depending on the weather, that I don't ride it for a couple days. But that bike is one of my favorite possessions. And it's compounded by the fact that I made it, so it's kind of nice experiencing something you built and it works well and all that. But that watt hours per mile, for those of you that own and drive a Model 3, you know that you can see as efficient as maybe 180 watt hours per mile, but typically you're going to be somewhere around 250 watt hours per mile for most mixed driving on a Model 3. And which is pretty decent. A Model S is going to be probably more like 300 watt hours per mile. But but you're moving a lot of weight around. Now, if you do the math, you can see that this car is like 3,800 and some pounds, and we'll call it an even 4,000 pounds with me in the car. So 4,000 pounds at roughly 200 and we'll call it 50 watt hours per mile, 250 watt hours per mile. You can see that this car uses about 10 times more energy than the bicycle does, but there's about 20 times, well, like 18 times less weight. So this car is about 70 or 80% more efficient than the bicycle per pound. Now, if you really look at that closely, there's a bunch of other factors at play here. One is the aerodynamics of this thing. A bicycle, an upright human being on a bicycle, is horribly aerodynamic inefficient. It's just terrible. You're this big sail moving through the air. You're complex in shape, and I typically ride that bike hot off the charger. It goes 32 miles an hour, and I'm typically at full throttle all the time. I pedal my brains out. Now, that's not through neighborhoods, but most of the ride that I do is on 30 to 45 mile per hour back roads, and so it's actually best to go fast. If I'm in the neighborhoods, I go, 15 to 20. There's stop signs and stuff. So all of that. But basically, on my long rides, I'm on 30 mile per hour to 45 mile per hour roads, and so I don't want to get hit by a car behind me, so I'm at full throttle most of the time. Well, at 30 plus miles per hour, there's a lot of wind resistance there. So also there's another factor here, and that is that this car is, again with me on board, roughly 4,000 pounds, but the battery is over 1,000 pounds. I believe it's 1,100 pounds. So 25% of the weight of this is battery. 25%. Now that sounds like a lot of weight, and it is. My electric bicycle, the battery is less than 20 pounds. It's about 18 pounds for the battery. And that, so you take that 235 pounds and you look at the 18 pounds, it's less than 10% of the weight of me on the bike is battery. So it's like 8% or whatever, I haven't done the math, but roughly 8% of the weight of the bike with me on board is battery, whereas say 27% or so of the weight of this car with me on board is battery. So you've got, you know, very little on the bicycle, human being on a bicycle, you've got very little, very low percentage of weight is battery. And with this vehicle, a larger amount of weight is battery. Also, you've got the whole matter of distance, and with this, I can go 300 plus miles on a charge. With the bicycle, it's more like, oh, I don't know, on a full charge, I don't know, we'll call it 40 miles maybe, something like that. So so it's an interesting comparison. Now the point to this video, with all that explanation on the lead-in, the point to this video is I would like to argue that, or I am arguing in this video, that lighter weight vehicles make a lot more sense. And that is primarily because with this car, we've got almost 3,900 pounds, 3,800 and some pounds, moving around a 180 pound person. And most often it's just me in the car, versus the electric bicycle, which is only, we'll call it 55 pounds, moving around the same 180 pound person. So vehicle mass and substance and weight versus driver weight, that bike is crazy efficient in comparison to this car. Because again, we've got, instead of 3,800 and some pounds moving me around, we've got, you know, 50 some pounds. I mean, it's what, 1/70th? It's only a couple percent. The bike is only a few percent the weight of the car, and yet it is I'd say a little less than half as efficient, or a little more than half as efficient as the car in miles. So when you look at weight of the vehicle versus efficiency and weight of the driver and all of that, that bicycle is many, many, many times more efficient than the car. Now, as a sidebar, you may ask, well, why are you even driving a car then? Just use your bike. Well, yeah, and I do a lot. This car was purchased primarily for my business. I do in-home appliance repair. I drive 160 miles per day. And in order to achieve what I need to for my business, I need to carry several hundred pounds of parts and equipment and that around with me. So I need a large vehicle to move equipment around, plus I need to be protected from the elements. I need to have sort of a mobile office, you know, a calm, quiet place that I can answer phone calls while I drive. So there's a reason I drive a large vehicle rather than just ride my bike around. But if I were just going to, and I do this all the time, if I'm going to the hardware store to pick up screws or something for a project, or I need to go to the grocery store and I'm just picking up a couple small items or whatever, I'll take the bicycle. Number one, it's radically more efficient than this car. I mean, off the charts more efficient than this car per mile. Number two, I get exercise. Number three, it keeps miles off the car. Number four, it's just, I mean, I'm not an environmentalist, but I'm also not a wasteful person. And I want to know that the energy that I'm using is being put to good use. So, and in fact, I almost feel strange shooting this video because I'm not actually driving anywhere specific. I'm just driving to shoot this video, and it almost feels wasteful to me. But it's an interesting case study, and there are vehicles called velomobiles. If you look it up, VELOMOBILE, velomobile. What that is it's an enclosed, essentially an enclosed bicycle or tricycle. Typically, they are three wheels layout, what's called a tadpole layout, which is two wheels in front, one in the back, similar to a Polaris slingshot, but with a full enclosed body. And those are, I believe, the most efficient vehicles per pound in existence, because they're heavier than a bicycle, but not a huge amount heavier. They're only a little bit heavier than a bicycle, but radically more efficient per pound because of the aerodynamic bodywork. It's a teardrop shaped body. One of these days, I would love to acquire one. There's a lot of reasons why I haven't obtained one yet. Cost is a factor. They're like $10,000. Number two, storage. I have almost no storage space at all. I have a tiny garage and it's all workshop space. I really couldn't store it. I mean, there's a lot of issues with owning one. Plus, you're a bit of a sitting duck in that thing. It's not as maneuverable as a bicycle, and you know, it's more visible than a bicycle, but it's wider and I don't know, not as usable. So, but it is a great vehicle. And I would love to obtain one just to do some efficiency testing and see how efficient you can make a vehicle like that function, and maybe even build something that is more user-friendly, potentially a two-person vehicle that's super efficient, much smaller and lighter than a car. Obviously, it would be heavier than a bicycle, but I think that a Velomobile is the perfect vehicle from just a pure efficiency standpoint, but they are impractical in a lot of ways. So I'm not arguing necessarily for that. And I recognize that substance in a vehicle, a given amount of mass, does protect you. I'd hate to be in a lightweight carbon fiber or fiberglass bodied little bubble thing and get slammed into by a 6,000 pound SUV going 60 miles an hour. So there's some practicality that has to be taken into account, and comfort and all that. And so, but that being said, I do think that we can make full-size cars much lighter weight while still being substantial enough to be durable and safe and all of that. And I know Elio Motors, and you guys are going to throw suggestions at me about lightweight vehicles. I really liked Aptera, if you remember them. They went under, I believe they were absorbed by a Chinese company, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can see one of their vehicles at a museum in Chicago. I believe it's the Science and Industry Museum, and that was, I believe, would have been the perfect vehicle. I was going to buy one. My dad was looking at buying one potentially, and they took their design from aquatic life, a dolphin, I believe, and just wonderful. Go ahead and research Aptera, A-P-T-E-R-A. Very lightweight, super aerodynamically efficient vehicle that still has a decent passenger cabin and that. And I believe that is approaching what I would call perfect transportation from a mixed use perspective. So anyway, what are your guys' thoughts about this? I mean, I'm all about performance and a solid feel and all of that, but do we really need to move around 4,000 pounds in order to get one 180-pound person around? No, we don't. Again, this vehicle hauls around a lot of equipment and that, and so, I get it, and I can haul five adults. My whole family, we've traveled out of state numerous times where this car has taken my entire family and all of our luggage, the front in the front and the trunk in the rear, completely full to capacity, all the seats completely full, using the supercharger network, and it's awesome. But the fact of the matter is, more often than not, look when you're driving. Almost every single vehicle on the road is one person behind the wheel, and this makes it especially bad with gas-powered cars, because gas-powered cars are very inefficient, and you're moving 4,000 pounds of inefficient vehicle to move around one human being. Just terrible. Again, I'm not an environmentalist, but I'm a realist, and I'm an efficiency person. I want to know that we're not wasting. And so I'm much more pro efficiency than I am pro electric for exhaust emissions reasons, and that's I could shoot a video on why I feel that way, another time. But for now, I just wanted to broach the topic of vehicle weight, and I know that This is part of the reason that the Model S is aluminum, and a number of EV manufacturers have talked about using aluminum in their vehicles to minimize weight. The first generation Honda Insight is all aluminum, and that was to keep the weight down for efficiency reasons. I actually really like that car, and I would love to obtain one and convert it for EV use. I'd love to do it. I could afford to do it. Too many projects, too little time, more than anything else. But I just lightweight, I think, is really the future. Now, we do have safety requirements, all the airbags and that, and so that adds weight to a vehicle, and we have to address that as well. So, but anyway, a lot of rambling, but wanted to throw that out there. What do you guys think? This is not something that I've done, a bunch of internet research on to give you guys specific numbers about different vehicles that are available and university research on the topic at all. This is just something that my personal experience shows in my electric bicycle, which is easy to test for efficiency. I can ride it for a given distance and recharge the battery and look at the display and see how much energy it took to recharge and all of that. And it's easy to test the efficiency and therefore the watt hours per mile. This car actually gives you the watt hours per mile. On this drive, I've averaged 160 watt hours per mile on a 12.4 mile drive. That's because I haven't used the air conditioning and I've been driving 35 miles per hour most of the distance. So, but anyway, it's just my own take on this and my own experience in riding my electric bicycle and driving around in my EV. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. A lot of you guys are much more scientifically astute than I am and can probably give me much more of the math and scientific research to either back up or dispel some of the things that I've said. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. This has been a fun 4-day weekend for July 4th for me. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and my referral code will be a link in the description below. So you guys have yourselves a wonderful day. Take it easy now. Bye-bye. Oh, I hope people understood what I was talking about there.